Cool. Okay. Well, I think, fingers crossed, we're live now, which is fantastic in our group. This is incredibly exciting. So I think most of the guys have been really excited about this. We're waiting for this moment to speak to the one and only Dominic Pace, who has been in the recent, and I've got to say, out of most of the things that we've seen out of the Star Wars universe, the Mandalorian is the thick one that's really kind of joined the fans together, got everybody back behind Star Wars, got everybody really excited, and it's so cool. And you know, huge amount of thanks, because I know you're very, very busy, to come and join a small bunch of lunatics that 3D print droids and do Star Wars stuff. So thank you, Dominic.
This guy is a side character, so without the support of the fans, and also being a collector and a fan myself, I can't tell you how grateful I am. So very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And yeah, all I've ever heard from people who've met you is you're such a nice guy and so authentic and such a kind of genuine. Life is good.
There's no reason not to be.
So we've got some feeds. I don't know if you can see them on the side. We'll have a few questions. If anybody's got any questions for Dominic, throw them up there. We'll try and fit them in there. But we're going to spend the next 40 minutes or so grilling this guy about his history, about what inspires him, excites him, and ultimately, I guess, where he's going in the future. So, Dominic, tell us. Let's whiz right the way back to you. I mean, what was your first interaction with Star Wars, and what brought you? You know, what really kind of grabbed your heart and your emotions about this genre and this movie and this universe?
Well, I think it was obviously, you know, we go back to 1980. I'm 44 years old now. I was born in 1975. So 1980, I was living in an apartment in upstate New York, about 40 minutes north. And my mother got me these, you know, the Cantina playset and the original 12 figures, which most of us boys and girls had at that age. You know, there wasn't too many distractions like there is now. You know, I get my sons a playset and they're already on their phone in 2 seconds, you know. So Star Wars, more or less, not to mention, you know, George Lucas being so groundbreaking at that time, to not only his creation, but also the music, the magic of John Williams, even before you were able to write, which I can recall Jawa being the first words that I spelt on this magnetic alphabet board. The music itself is what also pulls you. And the fact that they gave John Williams carte blanche to go all out and completely upstage, sometimes beyond words. And it was something that was very inspirational to me at the time there.
Yeah. So and what was the first movie you watched? Was it A New Hope? Was that the one that kind of got you?
No, it was actually, I'm sorry, it was Empire Strikes Back, and I was 6 years old, and it had the most profound effect to me. I think when you see Star Wars as a child, the effect that it has on you, even Return of the Jedi, was just so tremendous, because the world is still too big for you. So your imagination just kind of flows, and also, you know, you have to give credit to the performances, the strength of Harrison Ford, who has been my inspiration, and I think so many boys and man's idols throughout the years. And then the magic of Fisher and Hamill. It's just all coming together at that age. Plus, you know, you combine with your imagination and the toys to where there was little to no distraction. You grew a very strong affinity to the series there.
So you watched Empire and you thought you watched that small piece that's on the bridge where the bounty hunters appear, and 6-year-old Dominic said, "I want to be one of those."
Oh boy! Well, you know, I mean, I think every kid, you can dream it, but never in a million years did I ever think that I was going to come true.
So, right, question there, which is, hi Dominic, if you could play any character in the Star Wars universe, which one would you have chosen, apart from Gecko, because that's an easy get out?
You know, a lot of people with the mouthpiece, they talk about the Old Republic in terms of Darth Bane. I'm not too familiar with the books and the history and the lore. I mean, I pretty much am a 1 through 9 guy. I'm just now starting to get involved in Rebels and watch the Clone Wars with my kids. But Darth Bane seems pretty imposing with, you know, the bald head, and to have the... I'm a nice guy in person, but when I get to turn it on, again, it overtakes me, and I love the villain. So definitely be a Sith, one way or another.
Cool. And ones with bald heads, of course.
Yes.
Cool. I'm gonna throw a picture here, because I know there's you sent me a video which is Dominic with hair.
Yes.
And this is Tell me a little bit about this picture and this video. In fact, I'll zoom in
Sure.
just to embarrass you a little bit more.
This was 1999, and it was before Episode 1 was released. So it was obviously a very exciting time for Generation Xers, because you had between 1983 and 1999 to where obviously it was just it was pretty much dead space. I think Lucas maybe 2-3 years prior to 99 announced that he was going to do Episode 1. So for me, it was just really a special moment, because ultimately I didn't get a chance to collect or relive the nostalgia until that time. So before Episode 1 and leading up to Episode 1, it was just an incredible adrenaline rush, I think, for any Gen Xer, because for the first time, I think, in our adulthood life, you could say in our 20s, I was able to kind of relive the magic of childhood. We have our store here in the States, Toys R Us. It must be international. But there were lines at midnight of fellow fans waiting, and I got online with them because I was just sharing in the excitement of childhood there. So I had a film that I was doing with Miramax at the time, and my publicist said, look, nobody cares about this Miramax film, but they do care that you are a Star Wars collector and Episode 1 is coming out. ABC and NBC and E! Entertainment and ET Entertainment would love to interview you because they're fascinated with your collection. So I went on and had this whole big collection in my closet. So I took the whole world into my my little studio closet in the middle of Hollywood. And I had a Han Solo in carbonite. You can see it on YouTube, just YouTube Dominic Pace Entertainment Tonight. But yeah, I've just always loved the figures. For me, it's just been more of a memory of the innocence of childhood. Maybe your grandparents in the kitchen, your mother when you're younger, you have not a care in the world. Maybe your time that you had with your friends, but also just the creativity and the peaceful aspect of not having any responsibility, but just that Millennium Falcon in your room on the floor where you're able to just let your imagination flow for a couple hours. To me, it was just beautiful memories, and I'm so glad to collect even now because it kind of brings back all that magic.
So you still collect? I mean, you've got a whole bunch of stuff behind you there, haven't you? Is that a small section of your collection?
It's a little bit of a small section. What I've been doing now with the kids is they have a whole Lego Starship Galaxy in their bedroom. So hanging on fish wire, I've got about 7 to 8 ships, and each year we kind of have this great bonding time where we put together a Star Wars ship. So I got the Falcon, the Star Destroyer, TIE Fighters, the Slave One. I've got that all up, and then I also have just a little wall. There's like a little area where I'm able to hang up the action figures, and I have a lot from Rogue One because I enjoyed that so much. But anytime something pops out at me like a Death Trooper, I love the look because he's big and imposing. That would be one character I would love to portray, although it was nice that I got to have my face seen. But anytime I see a character that I really enjoy, I'll go ahead and pick up a 3.75 of it there.
You do like villains, don't you?
Without question. The 2-week journey there was beyond words, and I can only hope that every Star Wars fan can have the same experience at some time or another. They're creating more content in England and also here in the States and Australia, so you just never know.
Oh, what's your most prized piece? What's your most of your collection, and why is it so special to you?
The Icons Luke Skywalker lightsaber. I thought Icons did such an amazing job with the recreation of these prop toys. I mean, the replicas of the weapons. And for me, the Skywalker saber signifies the entire series, the arc. And I'm sure JJ is going to close it out in such a beautiful way. But for me, it's a Luke Skywalker saber that I have, and I bought it back in probably like 1998 or so.
I know the latest trilogy been quite controversial, really, but. JJ's his combination of safe pair of hands. He ties into nostalgia. And what's your feelings about the third one, about the Rise of Skywalker?
If I can add something before I say my opinion, the one thing is whether we like or we dislike the way that a story goes, I'm always careful in regards to phrasing it because. For me, I was inspired by my favorite characters were Han Solo, and I love Boba Fett. I love the bounty hunters in general. On my shelf here, I have the 6 original bounty hunters there. Whether I like or dislike the way sometimes a series or a movie might go, I'm hesitant to express the full opinion because sometimes there might be somebody at home that really, that's something that speaks to them. And the one thing I always would like to say is that my dreams and my inspiration, I would never want somebody to rain on that parade. So with me, with that being said, sometimes, you know, for a young kid or a girl or a lady or what have you, to where maybe they're completely inspired by episode 8 or Solo or what have you, I never want to, I don't believe that their dreams are any different or any less than mine. So though I may have my likes and dislikes, it's like our favorite soccer team or our favorite
Mm.
baseball team, to where ultimately we can never live without George Lucas. We can never live without Star Wars. With that being said, J.J. Abrams, I think, is going to close it up in a beautiful way. I think they're going to focus on what makes Star Wars so special in regards to family, regarding the Skywalker lineage, and also the beauty of light and darkness, something that we all fight day to day in terms of trying to do good in the world. But sometimes, you know, obviously the way the world affects us, we may go down a different path. So I hope that they bring it back to those general rules of thumb, because ultimately Star Wars in and of itself does not need to do anything more than that. We love it as it is.
I mean, you make a really important point there, is that I think everybody has their Star Wars moment. You know, I mean, mine was the original trilogy. I was, you know, 9 and 10 when I lived through that. The
Yes.
prequels, you know, I'd got older. When you get older, you get more jaded and you go, I'm not reliving my childhood. And I think whenever you jump into, and this is, I've got a point here that, you know, 50-year-old grumpy men shouldn't necessarily judge adventure science fiction films, but ultimately it's an adventure and it's fun, and that's how it should be interpreted.
I'll tell you, there was a good story I went to with my wife. It was a beautiful movie called Midsummer. It was like it was a horror film this summer. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. Anyhow, there was a woman at the concession stands, and she was going on and on asking me if I saw Dark Phoenix, this Marvel movie, and I could care less about it. It wasn't something that really was on the top of my list of seeing, but her eyes were just glowing in terms of the way that she was so excited about the characters and about the way that it played out. And my wife and I, we were talking to each other in the movie theater and saying, you know, look, this is just a perfect example in regards to just other people might be inspired by something else that you're not. And I think that's the beautiful message of Star Wars, in that we may find ourselves through Han Solo, maybe an alpha male with charisma and charm, and somebody else might find it through another character that empowers them, where we may not care too much because we're not able to relate. So ultimately, I think that's the beauty of Star Wars in terms of just having that beautiful arc to where it might be empowering for people in all different walks of life.
No, so it's amazingly refreshing to kind of have those conversations, to look at what is, because this I mean, the internet's a terrible thing, because it's just an echo chamber of people moaning and complaining about stuff, and to kind of go back to that, you know, that innocent excitement about these things is exactly, I think, where we should be, and where the Star Wars universe is really. So what, you know, you're obviously in the acting profession. What inspired you, and what started you to get? How did you follow yourselves into standing in front of the camera and playing bad guys?
Absolutely, it was my high school musical. You know, I actually had hair at the time, as you can see. I made a really good dance when I was 16 years old, and the adrenaline rush of being on stage in front of 1,000 of my fellow classmates was just electrical. I finally felt this adrenaline. I used to play sports. Baseball was my favorite sport, and I loved pitching, but I only got up to about 80 miles per hour. In the major leagues, you know, you have to throw 90 or above. I had that adrenaline rush through sport, and I think a lot of athletes might be able to relate, but it was nothing compared to performance. There was an adrenaline rush that I received when I was able to jump into somebody else's shoes. There's something very empowering about it, and a beautiful feeling of escapism, more powerful than going to the movies for the regular moviegoer. So when I was 17 years old, graduated high school, went to college for 1 year, and I told my mother I wanted to pursue this. I knew the journey was going to be difficult, every single odd job you can imagine. But flash forward 25 years later, we have over 100 television and film credits under my belt. I'm not a celebrity, but at the same time, it's just always been a labor of love. So even with the odd jobs, I've been so in my element and so much in heaven because I've always been doing what I love.
What was your first professional acting role?
It was a show on television. It was a medical drama called Strong Medicine. I had a couple lines as a police officer in 2002. It was a network called USA Network, and it meant so much to me. But the one that really was groundbreaking was a year after that, where it was a guest starring role. So guest starring roles are a little bit more of a higher tier, and it's for a very popular American show called NYPD Blue. That one meant so much to me because, again, it was a major popular show, and at that time I was already pursuing for 10 years, so it meant so much that I worked so hard and never gave up. And was able to get that little gift and that opportunity.
And what because acting is very difficult, and it's quite difficult. You know, it's unpredictable. What kept you going for that? What was your biggest inspiration to keep moving forward and to keep on the track?
Yes, I think whatever profession you're in, you may not be perfect with it. As an athlete, in the military, working out, even, people that do CrossFit, or they work in a restaurant, to where, how can I be better? We all have something that really we are drawn to, hopefully, even a real estate agent, of wanting to get that next sale, but having it come from truly strongly within. And ultimately, that is what I had as an actor, to where you want another taste. It was like a beautiful addiction, not only the art, but also the business in terms of closing deals.
And so, just talk me through then. So you're an actor, and something happens, and you end up getting a opportunity for the Star Wars universe. What's the story behind that? There must.
Well, I've gained a lot of guest stars throughout my career. A lot of agents would tell you that you have to stay at this level or above. Now, we don't want you taking anything less. It's any job where they want you to keep your quote high. If you're working in IT, if you're working in tech or whatever, that you have a certain quote per hour. They want you to keep that level, even with my autograph, perhaps. My agents now, they don't want you to go down at all. For me, as a blue collar actor, taking every job I can. Sometimes these guest stars last 2 days. What are you going to do after that? What do you do? It's like, if you don't have a series regular, I'm not going to sit home and act like some big shot Hollywood movie star. You have to get your hands dirty and you have to work. I was called in, believe it or not, for a simple makeup test, and it was a company called Legacy Effects. Legacy Effects is one of the top in the world, especially in Hollywood. They have over 20 plus years experience. And the gentleman who was working on me, his name was Brian Sipe, who worked with David Bautista. He was specifically hands-on with the character Drax through all of Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers. I didn't know it at the time. There was no mention of the Project Star Wars at all. We shared our love for sci-fi. I was patient in the chair for about 6 hours. I had the privilege of working in prosthetics on projects like Van Helsing. I was doubling Frankenstein opposite Hugh Jackman back in 2002. I also worked on Bright. I was one of the orcs with the Netflix show starring Will Smith, as well as on the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I had a couple of prosthetic jobs where I was a Kree as well as a guard at one point. So I had a bit of experience, but it wasn't until 2 weeks later that I get a phone call to come down for a screen test. I've been in this business for 25 years. Never in my life has any project had a budget to where you have a screen test. That includes a whole separate day for cast and crew. So whatever project it is must be quite a budget. I go down, and it wasn't until I walked into the wardrobe room that I saw the pictures on the wall, and any Star Wars fan in the world would be able to recognize these pictures and know exactly what it was. But it took it a step further. I was led into another room by an amazing costume designer, Richard A. Pora, and there was a hanger of clothes where it said Dominic Pace, my name, and the words bounty hunter, and that is where my hands went a little bit numb.
So up until that point, you didn't know it was Star Wars. I had to contain
myself. There were two other actors, and you're either a Star Wars fan or you're not. I've worked on other projects like even Marvel, to where it's just like, it is what it is. But you're either a Star Wars fan or you're not. So I had to really contain myself in terms of the level of excitement during that day there.
So up until that point, you didn't know it was Star Wars. It was the words bounty hunters is what introduced you to that universe.
That is correct. And then, again, I could never rest back on my laurels the entire shoot. There were 3 clothing options. 2 of them had me completely masked. Now, don't get me wrong. It would be an honor, obviously, to be a stormtrooper, a death trooper, or any kind of a masked character in one way or another, to be a creature to where your whole entire face is brought on, covered with a prosthetic. But Brian came upstairs, and I gave him a big hug. I mean, what do you say to a man that you only met once, who's given you your childhood dream? But he said, you were so patient in that chair that I'm going to give you the most extensive makeup. And there's a character that there was a model that he was inspired by. 2 years prior, he did a Greenpeace project of this female model that looks similar to a gecko. The paint, everything, exactly. And that it had those bumps at that time. So when I go in for the screen test with Favreau and Filoni, the other bounty hunters, they were actually kind of snickering a little bit. And I said, what's the matter? They said, well, not for nothing. They said, I got to tell you, it looks a little bit like you have boobs on your head, So I go over to Brian before we filmed, thank God. And I said, Brian, if you can, it's not my decision. I said, but I'm 6'4". I'm 260 pounds. I'm like the size of Jason from Friday the 13th. I said, if there's anything you could do with these bumps, I would really greatly appreciate it, just because I think we have the potential for this character to be completely badass. they had my face open like that. And as much as, maybe the narcissistic actor may say, oh my God, well, I want all of my face to show, Richard A. Porro was toying around with a mouth, with a mask, a face mask. And for me, I felt that would really make the character in terms of being imposing, putting horns instead of bumps on the head. And there we have the nickname Gecko. It's not official by Disney, but Gecko the Bounty Hunter is what I call it. And obviously, very one-of-a-kind species, and also a one-of-a-kind bounty hunter in the Bounty Hunter Guild for the Mandalorian. Look at that.
And this picture, I guess, encapsulates who that character is.
Without question. Andy Gill, he's in Canada. He was the one that I commissioned to do that piece. And it was absolutely amazing. I mean, I could not have, I don't think Lucasfilms could have created a better look than that character there. I mean, that drawing that he did. I commissioned a few illustrators, and hopefully after this Friday in the States, I'll be commissioning a few more, and I'm sure some will volunteer to create some of the screenshots that I have, and will be immortalized forever within the Star Wars universe starting after Friday. So very grateful. And what I've been telling people is, people ask me, oh, is there going to be more? Is there going to be this? Do you have that, or do you have that? You get to a certain point, it's like winning the lottery. I mean, if somebody gives you $1 million, are you really going to ask, can I have another, or will there be another $1 million? Perhaps some people will, but ultimately, for me, it's just to be grateful for this opportunity, and to pay it forward now to other charities, and to travel the world, and hopefully touch the lives of other Star Wars kids, Star Wars fans, and celebrate the brand of this amazing bounty hunter that Brian Sipe and Richard A. Porro has created.
And is that image there? Is that pretty much accurate to how you appear on screen? Did he work off your description photo?
There might be a little bit less of the brow. The brow prosthetic were covered, but more or less, yes. You see me briefly in the first episode. I'm kind of lingering amongst the cantina, almost like a cantina creature. But obviously, in the third episode, we're going to have a lot more close-ups, and will be defined within the universe there.
And what was the makeup like? What was that? You hear of guys that they have to turn up at 3 o'clock in the morning for the 7 hours of kind of makeup in the chair. It sounds like even though whatever character you are, the attention to detail in the Mandalorian is exceptional from what you've been describing.
Without question, it's a 2-hour process in the morning. But again, I think any Star Wars fan would agree. If we were to do a modern crime drama where maybe they had to dress me up as a dead guy and on the street or whatever, or as a cadaver, it would certainly be boring and tedious, and probably you'd get antsy. But when you're watching your Star Wars character, your own one-of-a-kind bounty hunter, be created in front of you, every morning it was like a kid in a candy store going to Playland. Just being as patient as possible. It took an hour to take off at night. It was a prosthetic on my head. And then, of course, they had to do the face paint where we had the black lines. There's a small white line that divides the skin tone, which they painted on. And then, obviously, we had the costume, which, took about 15 minutes or so. It was about 3 layers of clothing to that. I was going to do a detailed cosplay in tutorial after Friday. Just if anyone wanted to portray me, I was sending out to the world. I will certainly get you a complimentary autograph, as well as a photo at any of the conventions if I see anyone cosplay my character. For me, that would just be a dream come true, of course, along with an action figure. We don't know what's going to happen yet, but I'm hoping to get a Black Series at some time or another, and hopefully the fans will stand behind me with that.
Yeah, and I think you've already had some fan build figures sent across, or photographs certainly sent across, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely. All the fans have been so supportive. I commissioned a few illustrators, and then all of a sudden, once the look got out, it just kind of became a tidal wave from there, where other people were sending me work, and I was sharing everyone's work. People creating action figures and Funko Pops already. So obviously very excited, and also excited to start a big international tour of all the comic conventions to meet all the fans and get involved in a lot of causes throughout the country and the world.
How long was filming? How long were you actually on set for?
I was there for 10 days. The first week was the cantina, and the second week is a situation I can't discuss because it's in a further episode. But about 10 days. After the first week, the director, Deborah Chow, who now is going to be heading up the Kenobi series, had to make a cut. So there were about 20 people that were not invited back. And thankfully, I was invited back, because otherwise it would have just been what you saw in the first episode. And that would have been really bittersweet. It's like going to the theme park, but it's raining, So thankfully, I was invited back, and looking forward to being immortalized in about 6 days here in the States.
Yeah, we've got 6 days, and then it's episode 3, and episode 3 is where we see your magic moment. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, a couple of shots here and there, and obviously a very strong situation. But for me, again, just to be a small sliver of the universe is more than I could have ever asked for.
I mean, the images, and I'll just throw a couple up here, really, that shows your character. It's quite an iconic look, really. That,
Yeah,
isn't it, I've got to say.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I commissioned a few artists. I was looking at their work, and obviously a handful of them have their own interpretation. If you see the blaster, I had this beautiful Star Wars fan experience to where they had about 20 blasters in front of me. And I got to choose my own blaster. Of course, being big and imposing, I wanted to choose the largest and the biggest blaster, the most powerful one. So that blaster you see has a paintball canister in the back and a curved dagger down by the mag. I'll go through all the instructionals for anyone who wants to cosplay it. But I thought that was the most beautiful one for me, and I wanted to carry that with me. It was about 8 pounds. It was about 8 pounds, so it was not fun after 15, 16-hour days. But again, I think any Star Wars fan would agree, you know, when you had this opportunity, again, it was just, I didn't feel any of the pain just because the adrenaline was pumping so much for those 10 days. George Lucas was on set one day, and of course, you know, the situation that plays out, I wish I can take every Star Wars fan in my body during those moments and play it out with them, because it was what I was staring at was just something beyond words. You know, you go to theme parks, of course, they have Galaxy's Edge now here in America, in Florida, and Los Angeles and Anaheim. But also at the same time, nothing compares to literally role playing within your own character, within the universe, being completely surrounded by characters we've known and loved since we were children.
And that's been kind of fairly widely publicised. That obviously the picture of George there on set.
That was my first day right there. That was John's birthday, and I walk in and George was there talking to him about the Mandalorian universe, and it was so extensive. I'm not big into the books there, but again, to see him, I think you could probably count on one hand an entertainer, a CEO or a creator like a J.K. Rowling, Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, and perhaps George Lucas, to where they have this level of budget to talk about their creation. So I thought it was really special to be there as one of his characters within his universe, and to be within 10 feet of him, I thought was just truly an honor, and such a legend of a man.
Indeed, and an amazing collection in shirts as well, I think. He does like his check, doesn't he? So
Michael, I'm not hearing you there. I don't know if maybe perhaps anytime you put up the photo singularly, I'm not able to hear you there, so I'm not hearing your audio. Okay,
hello.
Now I can hear you.
Yes. Good. Yeah, no, I said George has got an amazing collections of shirts as well.
Yeah.
He likes his check shirt. So tell me.
Diet Coke. Yeah, he's got that, and he's got the Diet Coke there.
So when you you've got 10 days on set there, I mean, what was that like? And we have a no spoilers rule, as you know. So, but what was those 10 days like? What have you got any memorable stories or?
It was actually tense up into about 7 days ago, to be honest, because I had a guest star. One of my idols was an Italian American by the name of Chaz Palminteri. He did a film called Bronx Tale. It's a very famous Italian mafia film that takes place in the 60s in the Bronx, New York. I had a guest star with him, and for me, I think any aspiring actor would agree that if you are opposite your idol, that obviously is very special. So it was a TV show, and the TV show, right before our episode was going to air, they pulled the plug. It was starring Rob Lowe. It was a show called Dr. Vegas back in 2004. So what I'm getting at is, over those 10 days, as much as I was excited, and after the first and second day, the excitement of Star Wars was obviously completely filled, my heart. At that point, then you want to make sure that you're being seen and that you're able to be immortalized. So they were tense, because it wasn't until the second week where we have this situation where I felt that I can feel the camera, as they say, and really know that I was going to be a significant part of this series there. So it was exciting, but also at the same time, it was tense, because Star Wars meant so much to me. And I think every fan would agree that you obviously, if you're in it, you don't want to have to say, oh yeah, I'm that little guy in the back. You want to make sure that you are established. So not only being a one-of-a-kind bounty hunter, but also being completely in focus and having this situation, obviously, I was able to take a little bit of a sigh of relief. I was able to finally relax after about 7 days, when members of the 501st Legion saw the first 3 episodes, and they were able to confirm my presence and also complement the presence on screen there. You just never know.
So have you not seen episode 3 then?
Oh no! Next Friday is going to be a surprise champagne, and this will be the first time that I see myself really immortalized within the universe there, and it's going to be a great episode. I can tell you that.
So what's your plan on Friday then? What's the you must have a grandiose experience that you're going to create for you and your friends and family.
I'm really looking to bond with the 501st, not only because they're such diehard Star Wars fans, but also at the same time, they do so much community outreach, not only through the nation, but also throughout the world. So I'm actually going to be down in Anaheim, which is just south of Los Angeles, celebrating with a big group of the 501st, having champagne and just taking it in for a second and really just enjoying the fact that there's a very good potential that we might be an action figure.
So Anaheim on Friday. That's where you will be.
That is correct. November 22nd. My life is going to change, I think, as we know it.
And what's your family's take on all of this?
We're very excited. Obviously, we love traveling. We love charitable organizations. We love Star Wars. It's obviously going to be a little difficult because I'll be flying in and out maybe once every couple of weeks. But also at the same time, my kids, I've been on a million different crime dramas, but when your kids are 14 and 11, it's like, all right, whatever. So now it's like for the first time, the boys are generally excited to see their dad in something that could be in Fortnite, if they have a new skin, or it could be in a video game. It makes it a little bit more exciting for them. So happy to share the joy with them.
So you've been elevated to being a cool dad now.
Yes, finally cool, because all the gunshots and the boring lawyer dialogue and crime dialogue. I mean, I sometimes I can't even sit through it. You're just like, it was a paycheck, but other than that, I really don't care.
So what's been, because I know you've been glowing about the reaction for the fan base, but what was it like? I mean, because it sounds like it's almost gone viral in the way that the fans have embraced you and. And I think you've encouraged that as well, haven't you?
I've been waiting for this my whole life, not so much for celebrity, but also at the same time to do what I love, to make a difference. It's one thing, obviously, I go down, I've been heavily involved in charities throughout Los Angeles over the past 20 years within my career. But also at the same time, I mean, let's not kid anyone. When you have a little bit more of a celebrity status, you're able to draw attention of causes a little bit more. So for me, it's simplistic, nothing political at all. Please come to LA and please smack me across the face if I ever dictate anything political. But for me, it's just in terms of a child who might not, have a meal tomorrow, or might be in the hospital, or somebody who's homeless, things like that where I can be able to contribute, maybe even simply from a signature to be able to earn, $1,000 from an auction to sign someone's recreated blaster or something like that. That to me is really special, and that's what I'm mostly excited about.
And you're gonna continue. What have you got? What's the next kind of month look like? Have we got lots of appearances and signatures and whatever? So where you must be all over the world, I guess.
Yes, Croydon, England, November 30th. Potentially going down to San Antonio, Texas, December 19th for the premiere, along with Daniel Logan, who played Boba Fett. We're going to surprise an audience there. And then January 19th, I'll be near Sacramento, California at something called Stockton Con. And then in February, it will possibly be Brussels as well as Pensacola, Florida. So we already have almost a full dance card, but at the same time, going to be grounded here at home. I'm starring in a feature film called Anonymous Killers, which releases early next year. So really excited to show the world that project as well pretty soon.
And so what other projects have you got going on? I mean, what does the future hold now?
Sure. There's two sociological thrillers. One is Psychosis. It's with Tyler Mane, who starred in X-Men and also in Halloween. And then this project, Anonymous Killers, it deals with criminals. And it looks at criminals a different way in terms of the fact that perhaps they might have been wronged in their own life. Almost like, say, Darth Vader, to where, he's turned to the dark side, essentially. But sort of a modern-day version of that, to where you may have come from poverty. You might been, as a woman, you might have been raped. You might have been, your sister might have been murdered in front of you. There takes place, there take 5 killers. But essentially what it is to the audience is whether you sympathize with these killers or not. And there's no right answer. For some people, you commit a crime, you go to jail, or you get the death penalty, end of story. But the way that they present it is in a way that sometimes when you don't come from maybe a high level of privilege in life, your parents are not rich. You have to do what you have to do in order to survive, perhaps in the mafia or in a gang, or, again, maybe perhaps a feminist who was raped multiple times. And now all of a sudden she wanted to get revenge and she murdered the guy who did it. And now all of a sudden she's become a little bit crazy. So she murdered another man, etc. It brings forth these issues in society in terms of those who might not have the assistance that others might, and whether the top 1% really care or whether they don't. You can go ahead and die and you can go to hell. So it definitely will be a very thought-provoking piece. I play Romero Scarinelli, this mob kingpin, but also it tells the story as to why I got there, and there might be a little bit more of sympathy the way that the director poses it, as opposed to just a slasher killer film.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. Are you going to Celebration in Anaheim?
My agents are negotiating with them now. I think we're at the point where they just want to see me established here on Friday, and then I think a lot more opportunities are going to open up. The floodgates will be open after November 22nd.
Yeah. So we've got to see that. There's a bunch of us that are going down to Anaheim, so it will be magnificent.
Way, I'll definitely be present, whether there's a party or something of that matter. But they're trying to get me a booth with Disney there, so we'll see what happens. These side characters can go either way. These Klaatu's or Rees or Squidman, etc. It's kind of something like that within the Mandalorian universe, and the Star Wars universe. So you just never know. You're either significant or you're not. But personally, I think the look of this character, I think a lot of people, especially who collect, will be really enthused to add this character to their collection.
And that's driven by the fans, and I mean the fans have kind of really taken to this character, haven't they?
Yeah, very excited and very grateful for all of them. I've been interacting with everyone the best that I can. It's starting to the ante's starting to up here a little bit. I'm getting more of a following lately, but I'm trying to respond to all the fans as much as possible, because I share in their excitement around this time of year as much as I'm enjoying it myself.
And before we started talking, you showed me this rather magnificent figure. You've got to kind of you've got to show us this, because I think this is a one-of-a-kind sculpture, but it's a beautiful look of the look at that. Yeah.
As I was joking, I think it's my alter ego, and I said, almost like Venom, that he would not like me. I'm too kind. I'm too nice. But an unapologetic bounty hunter, people have been asking me in terms of the research, in terms of the character. I feel that he would stop at nothing, whether it's a baby, a woman, or a child, to grasp for money. I don't think that he would stop at anything in order to obtain that. There is no level of sympathy with this bounty hunter. Little on the agility, a lot on the power and the size. Again, like Jason from Friday the 13th, and a very, very powerful blaster. So I think it's an amazing character. And again, people ask me what other character I'd love to portray. I just can't ask for anything more than this. I think Brian and Richard A. Porro, who added the face mask, have done just such an amazing job.
Well, it is, and I mean it's iconic in the way that it looks. And we can't wait really until what's that?
Yeah, so it's a little bit thicker, but also he's got, it's very Star Wars-esque. He's got a bandolier with him as well, and a strap, and you'll see that established on November 22nd. I had a gentleman, this is not the accurate depiction, but also give me just a slight replica of the blaster. And again, it just kind of vaguely has a little bit of the curved dagger down at the bottom. And then, of course, we've got the paintball canister, which are the two signature characteristics of the character's blaster there.
Oh, fantastic. So you've pretty much you've become a geek about your own character, really, haven't you?
It's, I hope all the fans can understand. I mean, if you had your own character, your own bounty hunter in the universe, I mean, it's so hard not to if you're a fan and a collector. So, but I do plan on donating a lot of the stuff as it rotates through my door, again, to the causes throughout the world there.
No, I mean, well, Dominic, I mean, outward, you're a bad guy. Inward, you've got a heart of gold from what I've seen. So, I mean, I'm
very appreciative, very grateful. It's such a greedy world, and even the town where, everybody's chasing, and you're chasing your entire life. I was in Europe last year. My wife's niece was getting married in Sicily, and I saw this family. The beautiful thing about Europeans is that, they take a second to breathe. They take a second to enjoy life. And to me, that's the key. You get to a certain point, and do we all want to be a movie star? Yes and no, to a certain extent. But ultimately, you also got to just take time and appreciate what you have, and how grateful we are to have our health, to have our friends, to have our family. And at that point, to see what others may perhaps do not have, And if I'm able to touch a life of a child or somebody who's going through a hard time by maybe a simple video message saying happy birthday, to me, that's kind of my direction now moving forward. I'm 44 years old, and you just never know. I mean, unfortunately, you start getting up there, and if they told you maybe next year is going to be your last, what do you do with your time? And for me, it's to try to help others.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely fantastic. We're probably getting close to time now. So, I mean, firstly, from all the guys that are watching, and I guess from the Star Wars universe, a massive thanks. It's brilliant to watch the movies and the TV series kind of evolve. What's more impressive is to watch the characters evolve, and what's even better than that is to see really good guys like you actually become part of that and to share that with the fans, and also I guess the respect and the love that you've got for the series and for the fans is just humbling. It's immense. So a massive thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We will look forward in 3 weeks' time. Sorry, not in 3 weeks' time. In the third episode next week, we'll get to see your character in its full glory. We will celebrate. We'll no doubt be sharing lots and lots of photographs. And I look forward to seeing lots and lots of guys cosplaying and figures and the whole piece. Hopefully, then you can collect more of small Dominics with horns rather than boobs.
Are you saying I get to play with myself? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. You said that. Yeah.
Go play with yourself. No, absolutely. Thank you so much. It would be amazing. It would be amazing. Thank you.
You are developing European humour. That's really good, considering that you can visit us in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Croydon event, I'd love to meet you, and thank you for stopping by my booth.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that, fingers crossed I'll be there the 29th. Well, should be coming down on the 29th and staying over, and then I will see you no doubt on the 30th. So if we get to share a beer, we get to share a beer. If I get to wave to you across the hall, we get to wave across the hall. We'll see how that goes. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Great evening.
Stuff. Cheers. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, guys. Cheers. As always, this is recorded, so anybody who wants to watch it can do. If you've got any questions, stick them on the wall, and we'll ask Dominic. Thank you very much, and speak to you all soon. Bye.